Sarah was relieved after finally ending her tumultuous relationship with Tom. She thought she could now move on with her life, but Tom had other plans. So it all started when I finally broke up with Tom. Our relationship had been a roller coaster, and I knew it was time to get off the ride. I was ready to move on and get my life back to some semblance of normal. I honestly thought I could breathe easy, but I was dead wrong. At first things seemed okay. I changed my routine a bit, trying to make a clean break from anything that reminded me of him. But then Tom started showing up in the weirdest places. Like, I'd be grabbing coffee at my usual spot and boom, there he was, acting all surprised to see me. Or I'd go to the gym at a different time, and he'd, coincidentally, be there too. At first, I brushed it off as bad luck. I mean, we lived in the same town and had some overlapping hangouts. But then it got creepy. No matter where I went, Tom was always there. Once, I decided to visit a friend who lived 2 towns over, and guess what? Tom showed up at the same restaurant we were at, claiming he was just passing through. It was too much to be a coincidence. My best friend Emily was the one who suggested something was up. We were having lunch and I was venting about Tom's omnipresence when she said, "Sarah, have you checked your car for a tracker?" I laughed it off at first. It sounded like something out of a spy movie. But then I thought, what if? That evening, I went home and did a thorough inspection of my car. I didn't really know what I was looking for, but I checked under the seats, in the trunk, and under the chassis. I almost missed it. A small black device, neatly tucked away in the wheel well. My heart dropped. Tom had actually installed a tracker on my car. The realization that he had been stalking me, knowing my every move, was terrifying. I called Emily right away, and she came over to help me figure out what to do next. We decided to take the tracker to the police and file a report. The officers were surprisingly understanding and took the situation seriously. They advised me to be cautious and to change my locks, just in case. A few days later, the police contacted me with an update. They had confronted Tom, who denied everything, of course. But they warned him to stay away from me, and I hoped that would be the end of it. However, things took an even darker turn. One night, I was watching TV when I heard a noise in the garage. I checked the security footage from the camera I had installed after all this started. There he was, Tom, sneaking into my garage and attempting to install another tracker. Seeing him on camera sent chills down my spine. I called the police, and they came immediately. Tom was caught red-handed and arrested. This time, he couldn't deny it. He was charged with stalking, harassment, and breaking and entering. The court granted me a permanent restraining order, and Tom was given a hefty sentence. I moved to a new, undisclosed location and took extensive measures to protect my privacy. New locks, a better security system, and I even changed my phone number. The whole experience left me shaken, but I was determined to move on with my life without living in fear. Now, looking back, I can't believe how naive I was to think everything would be fine after the breakup. If there's one thing I've learned, it's to trust my instincts and to take action when something feels off. Stay safe and always be aware of your surroundings. You never know who might be watching. Enjoying the content? Subscribe now for more. Mia thought she had moved on from her ex-boyfriend, Chris, but he had other plans. Chris used his tech skills to intrude on Mia's life in ways she never imagined. Alright, let me start from the beginning. Breaking up with Chris was the best decision I ever made, or at least that's what I thought at the time. We dated for about 2 years, and while things were good in the beginning, he started getting controlling and possessive. When it ended, I was ready to move on and leave all the drama behind. For a while, everything was fine. I changed my passwords on all my accounts, blocked him on social media, and tried to live my life. But then, weird things started happening. It began with minor annoyances, like emails I never sent showing up in my sent folder, or my social media accounts logging me out unexpectedly. I figured it was just tech glitches, and didn't think too much about it. Then, One morning, I woke up to a barrage of messages from friends and family. My Facebook and Instagram were flooded with humiliating posts and photos. The worst part was, these posts looked like they were from me, and they were about deeply personal stuff. I was mortified. People were calling and texting, asking if I was okay, what was going on, and if I had lost my mind. I knew it had to be Chris. He was a tech wizard, always bragging about his hacking skills. I felt violated and exposed. But it didn't stop there. He started intercepting my communications. Private messages between me and my closest friends were suddenly made public, twisted to make me look bad. He even got into my email and sent fake messages to my boss, making me look unprofessional. At this point, I was a wreck. I didn't know what to do. I changed my passwords again, but it was like he was always one step ahead. That's when I realized I needed professional help. I contacted a cybersecurity expert, and we spent hours securing my accounts, setting up two-factor authentication, and scouring my devices for malware. With the expert's help, I managed to reclaim my online identity, but it wasn't over. Chris was relentless. I had to involve the police, and that was a whole other nightmare. Trying to explain cyber harassment to officers who barely understood how email works was frustrating. But finally, after weeks of gathering evidence and countless visits to the police station, they took my case seriously. They were able to trace the attacks back to Chris and arrest him. He was charged with cyber harassment, identity theft, and a bunch of other things. It was a long and exhausting process, but seeing him face consequences for his actions gave me some peace of mind. After all of this, I took even more steps to protect myself online. I use two-factor authentication for everything, regularly update my passwords, and am super cautious about the information I share. It's sad that it took such a horrible experience to make me realize how vulnerable I was. But at least now I know how to protect myself better. Looking back, it feels like a nightmare, but it also taught me a lot about the importance of online security. If you ever feel like something's off with your accounts, don't ignore it. Trust your instincts and take action. You never know who might be watching or trying to mess with your life. Stay safe out there. Emma had always been meticulous about her living space. After breaking up with her boyfriend Jason, she moved into a new apartment to start fresh. Little did she know, Jason wasn't ready to let go. So, here's how it all went down. I had been with Jason for about 3 years, but things got rocky, and we finally called it quits. It was tough, but I knew it was for the best. To really start fresh, I moved into this cute little apartment downtown. It was perfect, close to my job, cozy, and just the right size for me and my cat, Milo. At first, everything seemed normal. I unpacked, got settled in, and started to feel at home. But then, I began to notice little things out of place. Nothing major, just tiny stuff. Like, I'd leave my keys on the kitchen counter, but find them on the coffee table. Or I'd have my favorite mug in the cupboard, and then it would mysteriously end up in the sink. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe I was just stressed from the move and the breakup, but it kept happening. One night, I came home from work, and my bedroom window was open. I always, and I mean always, keep it shut. It freaked me out, but I convinced myself I must have forgotten to close it. I know, it sounds dumb now, but you try thinking rationally when you're living alone and weird stuff starts happening. The real kicker came when I found a note. It was tucked into my jewelry box, which was weird because I hadn't even touched that thing since I moved in. The note said, "You can't hide from me." My heart nearly stopped. I knew Jason could be intense, but this was next level. I called my best friend Sarah, and she came over right away. We tried to laugh it off, like maybe it was some prank, but deep down, I was terrified. Sarah helped me search the apartment, but we didn't find anything else out of the ordinary. She stayed with me that night, which helped, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The next few days were tense. I started locking every door and window obsessively. I even got one of those little doorstop alarms for extra security. But the notes kept coming. I found one in my coat pocket, another slipped under my doormat, and the worst one was in my bed. I'm always close. That's when I knew I had to take serious action. I went to the police, but without any proof, they couldn't do much. They suggested I get a security camera, which I did immediately. I set it up in my living room, where it had a clear view of the front door and most of the apartment. A few nights later, I finally got the proof I needed. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the camera. I opened the app, and there he was, Jason, standing in my living room, looking around like he owned the place. I felt a mix of fear and relief. Finally, I had evidence. I called the police and showed them the footage. They took it seriously this time and put out a warrant for Jason's arrest. They also advised me to stay somewhere else until they found him, so I crashed at Sarah's for a few days. Jason was arrested a week later. Turns out, he had kept a copy of my apartment key and had been sneaking in while I was at work. He was charged with breaking and entering, stalking, and a bunch of other things. I got a permanent restraining order against him and moved to a new, undisclosed location. I also took extensive measures to protect my privacy. New locks, security system, everything. Looking back, it feels like a bad dream, but it was all too real. I never thought something like this could happen to me, but it did. Now, I'm a lot more cautious about who I let into my life, and I always trust my gut when something feels off. Stay safe out there, and if you ever feel like you're being watched, don't ignore it.